Welcome to the Foul Play YouTube channel, open mic number 185. Hope everybody's staying warm today in your part of the world. I know for many of us here, it's bitterly cold. I think it's -1 here right now, actually. 20 below wind chill, snow, you name it, we got it. Finally, this is actually the first real snow we've had this year. I don't know about everybody else, but I think Cherie said the same thing a minute ago when we were chatting before we started. So anyway, I'm bundled and trying to stay warm. And what about the rest of you? So anyway, today we're going to jump back into depositions. It's been several months since we have touched these at all. We got up to September 22nd, 2005. Anybody who was at Docs Live yesterday, there were 4 depositions on September 22nd, 2005, and Mark Rohr gave his part 2 deposition. I believe that's right. I'm almost positive it is. Anyway, today we're starting with Mike Griesbach, and then the first time there's a short one. I think it's 20 pages or so. It's not very long, from Vernon Clement. We'll try to get both done. If we can't, we can't. It's fine. No big deal. Anyway, let's be unrude here and say hello to everyone. Get everybody a greeting, and then we're going to get started. First, I have Susan. How are you?
Cold.
Freezing your ass off like I am?
Yes. I'm all bundled up though, so it helps. But
Absolutely.
yeah, it's extremely cold here. Yep. I'm feeling
That's,
it right along with you.
yeah. And this room here that I'm in, it's a pretty big room, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 6 sets of windows and 2 glass sliding doors, one on each side of the room.
Oh
So
boy.
you can just imagine. I mean, it's pretty tight, but you can't ever, if you got a window, you're gonna get cold air.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Trying to
All
stay
right.
warm. Looking forward
Yeah,
to this.
absolutely. And then next up, we have Kay. How are you, Kay?
Hey, I'm good. Just trying to stay warm here in the middle of the map with our huge 1 inch of snow on the ground. It is like
It,
5 degrees here.
well, we're all hovering around the same temp, so we did get, I don't know, I think total between the last couple of days, we probably got 9 or 10 inches of snow, something like that. At least 4 or 5 inches fell last night. The wind was howling. I won't say blizzard, but I sure as hell wouldn't want to go out in it.
Yeah,
And then,
it's
yeah, pretty
it's,
nasty.
it's all there.
Yeah. And then we have Cherie. I don't recall. How are you?
Hello from wintry New York. We don't have 9 or 10 inches, I don't think yet, but a few inches at least, and it's cold, windy.
Yeah, I'm sure for you guys, this first real snow as well. So, alrighty. Susan, can you give everyone in the live chat a quick greeting? And in the meantime, I
Sure.
will get the document on screen.
Okay. Uh I see David K. Hello, David. Trav. Good morning. JD is with us. Stuart King. Under Your Scars. Hello. Passive Bear. Pete Moss. Wooden Pallet. Gloria. Charlotte Dowling is with us. Nanny Angie Dickinson. Rhonda SD. Oh, my screen jumped here. Hang on a second. Stop that. Let's see. Sorry about that, guys.
It's okay.
Really jumped. Let's see. Mira Pennington, Graham Moss, Nance Life 7, Clive Coolidge, True Crime Fangirl, Lisa Sakowski, JD, Sela 442, Gloria is with us. Hello, Gloria. Sheila Hawkins has joined us. Mary Kopp, Hello, Mary. Let's see. Under Your Scars. Hello, Under Your Scars. Behind the Magic just jumped in. I think that's it so far, Jack.
Excellent. Okay.
Welcome, everyone. Thanks for
Absolutely.
coming.
Absolutely. One comment I'm gonna, if it's in here. Well, I don't see it. I guess what before. Yeah. Stuart King made a comment way up the top, just giving us a little thanks for everything that we do.
Yeah.
You know, we're just regular. We appreciate that. We really do. We're just regular people, just like you and everyone else, that feel like that we have to make a statement vocally, publicly. It does make things take on a different flavor because you open yourself up for people that may agree with you on some points, disagree with you on others, and others that vehemently disagree with you and call you every kind of name that you can think of, and then some, make some up. So it makes for an interesting situation. Okay, couple of little housekeeping.
Sherry Lynn's asking, who is Vernon Clement?
He is a former MTSO deputy or detective. I don't remember. He's pretty old, retired. I don't think there's much in his deposition at all. I think he's like, I want to say 78, but that could be wrong. He's pretty old. I do remember just scanning through it briefly yesterday or day before when I was looking at what we might start on, but I'm probably going to do a mix between this and getting into the Calumet County case of dispatch calls, because there's going to be a lot there. It's going to take a while to get through this. So we're not going to listen to every channel and every call. I'm not doing it because much of it is so irrelevant. But we've got it. It's all recorded in the playlist anyway. So if anybody wants to listen to those channels that are not really relevant, help yourself. But I wanted to get back into these and get them done in some kind of timely fashion, and then get into the Calumet County calls as well. So, yep, Vernon Clement. Okay. Anyway, a couple little housekeeping things. First of all, please be civil to each other. Take the high road. If you feel yourself getting really pissed off and mad at someone in the chat, don't type anything for a minute. Step back, cool off. If you have a problem with someone, certainly raise it to the attention of one of us, and we'll deal with it. But just take the high road. That's the easiest way to do it. Take the high road. You don't necessarily have to respond in kind to someone that could be not being very nice. And then,
amen.
Yeah. I'm just going to say just briefly, just a little bit about yesterday in reading through Casey's brief. Yeah, I had a lot of questions today, some DMs, and certainly comments on various social media. But this brief was as laser focused as I've seen her write, and the last one was pretty much on point. This one even more so. It's really to the point, and not too much playing around with anything else. I have seen some comments from, actually, there's a newspaper article that I was sent. I think from the Herald, or I can't remember which paper it is, to be honest with you. Anyway, it's talking about Judge Angie and her leaving the case because of how many actual errors she made in her reply when she denied the 97406. And it was actually quite a few that they rattled off. The newspaper article was pretty scathing, to be honest. I don't know if any of you guys have read that or not.
Can we look at that on the next open mic, or the next open mic you have that isn't depositions?
Oh, the newspaper article?
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, if we have time here later, I could probably pull it up and we can look at a little bit of it tonight. It's interesting.
John Frax.
I don't remember who wrote it. I don't remember if it was Frack. I don't know. Was it?
Yeah. From the Patch? Is that the one you're talking about?
I'd have to look. I don't remember.
Yeah, that's the one I saw anyway.
Pretty scathing.
Yeah.
All right.
Interesting.
Questions, please put a Q in front of it in the live chat, and we'll try to get to it.
I'll bet
Reading
Andy
through-
enjoyed it.
reading through these, as you guys know that have done the X amount, if we've come across something really strange, we will pause, talk about it, move on. If there's a certain segment or whatever question that someone has about something in the deposition, just put a Q and put it in the chat. Well, I promise I'll try to catch it. It's going to be a little more difficult. Yes.
Can I have a link to it?
To the deposition? Oh, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Of course.
Me too.
I'll just put it in the open mic text.
Okay.
That's easy to get.
Thanks.
Right there. There you go.
Thank you.
Thanks, man.
Oh, I did want to
Never
make mention.
signed. Oh, there it is.
Doc said that he might try to drop in. He's got some things to take care of this morning. I think Neverly is still under the weather. I haven't heard from her in a day or two, but I know she wasn't feeling well. So I'm guessing Alice is busy doing grandma stuff because she's a granny now. Anyway, so you got us, and we're enough for now. Anyway, so like I said, anybody that's joined us in doing these, I generally have two people read the main parts, and then typically Cherie and I and whoever I will do the side lawyers that are here, which I'm fixing to read through. This Griesbach and it witness, and then Thursday 9/22. His was at 8:30 by Barbara Cohen Joseph. I don't know if
What's
that's
that
his
mean?
lawyer.
Is that the? Oh, that's his lawyer.
I'm not sure. I just noticed that, and I'm not sure if that's the lawyer or what.
Yeah, I don't.
Because as far as I know, the guy that his name's Jeff, I can't remember his last name, is the manuscript guy that did the video and then did the transcript. So I'm not sure who this Barbara Cohen is.
She might be the transcriber.
Could be. Might have had a helper. Then the lawyer appearances, of course, Kelly, Glenn and Kelly, Covelli on behalf of Dennis Vogel, Manitowoc County, Bascom on behalf of Manitowoc County, Pollins representing Kosuric in Manitowoc County, John Mayer on behalf of Kosuric, and then James McCambridge. So this McCambridge is from the DOJ on behalf of the Griesbach and Avery's there. Of course, Jody's in jail at this point. She's been in jail over a month at this point in time. I'm going to, for my eyes, I'm going to blow this up a little bit because I'm blind. Not blind, but I need to blow it up. I'll try to keep it off that bar. I tried to remove that bar on the upper left there, Susan, but I haven't figured it out yet. But I think I can make this work without getting in the way.
The bar on the upper left.
Yeah, one document I had here up recently, it was in the way, and you made me move it. Somebody in the chat, I think it was kind of bothering them. So when I slide it over, it might be on the numbers, but that'll be okay. Anyway, so what we're going to do for tonight, if you would be the lawyer, Mr. Kelly.
Okay.
Ask the questions, and Susan, if you can be Griesbach and give the answers.
Sure.
I'll be Covelli and Bascom, and Cherie, if you can be Mayor and that I think it's Pollen. I don't think there's a whole lot between any of these other side lawyers, so I think we can make it work pretty easily. Anyway, without further ado, let's get going. Anytime you're ready, Kay.
Mr. Griesbach, would you tell me your date of birth and your age, please?
Sure. February 13th, 1961, and I'm 44 years old.
Okay, and you're currently an assistant district attorney in the Manitowoc County DA's office?
That's correct.
Okay. How long have you been in the Manitowoc County DA's office?
I believe it would be 14 years, 1991 to now, so 14 years.
Okay, and I understand we had some testimony by Mark Rohrer just a little while ago that there was a brief period of time during which you were the district attorney of Manitowoc County?
Well, it's kind of a complicated matter. I had been elected as the district attorney in 2002 after running for election. I chose, for basically personal reasons, not to take office. But in the intervening time between actually the primary election, which was in September of 2002, until January of 2003, which was when the new term was going to begin, I was still present, as was the former DA, Jim Fitzgerald.
Okay.
But the answer is basically no. I have not served as the district attorney in Manitowoc County.
Did you remain in office between January of 03 and March of 03 when Mark Rohrer came on board?
Yes, I did.
Okay. I don't want to go into the personal reasons, but I do need to ask this. Did the personal reasons have anything to do with this case, with the Stephen Avery case?
Oh, not at all. Mm-mm.
Oh, okay. All right, fine. So the period of time that you've served as an assistant district attorney in the Manitowoc County District Attorney's Office up until January 1st of 2003, your boss was Jim Fitzgerald?
That's right.
Okay. And then starting in March of 2003, your boss became Mark Rohrer,
Yes.
and he's still your boss?
Yes.
Okay. So then you were in the office during some of the post-conviction proceedings in the Stephen Avery case?
That would be right.
In particular, you were in the office when Steve Glenn represented Stephen Avery in 1996 in an effort to secure his release on the basis of DNA evidence at that time?
In office in the sense that I worked there as an assistant DA.
Okay.
Right.
Well, let me ask you this. Did you have, in any of those proceedings, did you have any responsibilities yourself?
No.
Okay. Well, in respect to the Stephen Avery conviction during the period of time that you worked for Mr. Fitzgerald, did you ever discuss the case with him?
I may have once. I recall being present more or less as an observer during one of the post-conviction motions when Mr. Fitzgerald was appearing for the state. And I thought Mr. Glenn, but perhaps someone from the Wisconsin Innocence Project, was appearing for Mr. Avery. Nothing in depth in terms of a conversation at all.
Well, we've had some testimony about the fact that in early September of 03, around September 3rd, Mark Rohrer received a telephone call from the crime lab concerning the analysis that the crime lab had done and the fact that the crime lab had, by its analysis, determined that the person who had assaulted Penny Bernstein was Gregory Allen and not Stephen Avery.
Yes, yes.
And you were informed of that by Mark Rohrer?
Yes.
Okay. Up until that moment, had you from any source any knowledge had you from any source any knowledge concerning Gregory Allen?
None.
Was it a new name to you when Rohrer told you about what he had been told by the crime lab?
Yes, it was.
Okay, again, up until that time, you were serving in an office that included Brenda Peterson as the victim witness coordinator and Beverly Batker as a paralegal, right?
Yes.
Up until you heard from Rohrer about what he had heard from the crime lab, had you discussed Gregory Allen or Steve Avery with either Brenda Peterson or Bev Badker?
No.
Okay. Where'd you go to law school?
I went to Marquette U.
Okay. And when did you complete your studies at Marquette?
It would have been 1983 undergrad and then 1986 law school.
Okay. Well, between 86 and 91, when you entered the DA's office, what did you do?
Working backwards, I guess, from Manitowoc, I was an assistant DA in Ozaukee County from, I still remember the date, May 2nd of 1988 until I believe it was September of 1991. Prior to working as an assistant DA in Ozaukee, I was in private practice for a couple years. I guess that would be 2 years between law school and Ozaukee County as an attorney for a law firm by the name of Gagno Law Office, which was located in Berlin, Wisconsin, west of Oshkosh.
Okay. When you were in private practice, did you do any criminal work?
A small amount.
Okay. So is it fair to say that you were a relative rookie in criminal law when you started at the Ozaukee office?
That's very fair to say, yes.
Okay. All right. Well, we've had an exhibit marked here today and discussed with Mr. Rohrer to an extent, and it's Exhibit 123. I'd ask you to take a moment and examine that.
Sure.
You're the author of that document?
Yes, I am.
Okay. And that recites, or let me ask you, what does that recite?
Well, it summarizes the afternoon when we received the information from the crime lab that they had a DNA specimen retested with the new technology and that the specimen on the Avery file pointed to and came to be identified as Gregory Allen instead of Mr. Avery. This was relevant evidence on this assault.
Okay, go ahead.
The memo further is my note of what I observed in the Avery file. When we got the call from the crime lab, I and Mark retrieved the Avery file and looked through the file. And the memo recounts that within a couple minutes, I did locate a criminal complaint alleging that Mr. Allen had committed a crime about a year prior to the assault in this case. And the police reports as well caught my attention because we'd been told by the crime lab that the DNA specimen came back to Mr. Allen, Gregory Allen. So I retrieved that and found it of interest.
When you say you retrieved the file, was it you or Rohrer or both of you who actually physically retrieved the file?
When I say retrieved, I should clarify. I actually meant the Allen complaint and the police reports from within the file. As far as retrieving the entire file, my recollection is that the file was in several boxes. I think the boxes were kept in the office of Mark, in the district attorney's office himself, if I recall correctly. I'm not absolutely sure about that.
Okay.
I want to pause right here just for a second and think about this now. This is 2003. Why would they still have Allen's boxes in the DA's office at this point in time? He's locked up. He's in prison and has been for.
No, I think they're talking about Avery's file.
He said Allen.
Yeah. I mean,
Well,
I don't
the
think
Allen
that's
complaint within the file, within Stephen's file. Because when he retrieved Stephen's file, the Avery file.
He says, when I say retrieve, I should clarify, I actually meant the Allen complaint and police reports from within the file, as far as retrieving the entire file.
From within Stephen's file.
That's the way I understood it too. Was
Gregory
Stevens.
That's what
So-
you remember that he was so freaked out about.
And that was the point I was going to make, but I want to make sure I understood that, because if everybody remembers us Watchmaking a Murder Part 1, and Griesbach's talking in that interview, he said that this material that we're talking about here, this police reports and so forth, of Gregory Allen was in Stephen Avery's boxes of files in the DA's office. Why would it
That's what
still
he's
be
talking
there?
about right here. Yeah.
Yeah. Why would that be that way?
Here's the thing. I don't think that's that uncommon, Jack, for corrupt district attorneys' offices to have like a war chest of files they protect. We found out in Oklahoma County through David Prater, who was the DA when Daniel was prosecuted. We found out when his investigator filed a lawsuit against him and there were depositions and everything.
Yeah.
Through that investigator's deposition that Prater has a room that's his own private evidence storage locker.
See that?
And so I think that's common for them to safeguard their secrets.
Well, also they were doing new DNA testing at that time, so he may have pulled the file and had it.
It's possible. It's possible. I mean, it was kind of dumped in Rohr's lap. I mean, it could have been something that Fitzgerald already had there from 97 or 98, whenever they did the testing previously, and it just stayed there. I don't know, or it could have been put in the next level down, because I don't know if everybody remembers, but the way that it worked in Manitowoc County is they had open files, which were there in the prosecutor's office filing cabinets. I'm sure they probably had some kind of maybe a locking mechanism. I don't know. Of course, the DA had files of his own inside of his office, but then they had, when files were closed or they wanted to archive, they moved them downstairs. And then downstairs from there, when they wanted to archive, those got moved to another building that was operated by a third party. You guys remember that, Susan? I know you probably do.
I'm sorry, I was reading ahead a little bit, and they're going to answer your question.
That's how it always goes.
I'll quickly repeat it. Basically, they had three. I'm not even going to count the DA's office, because that's kind of a different animal. But they basically had three places that they kept the prosecutor files. In the main office, which probably had locking file cabinets. Then when that got full and they wanted to archive, files got moved downstairs to another area, a storage area, I guess, of some kind. And then files from that area, once they need to be archived, all the ones that are like, okay, we need to move these, they got moved to another building that was off-site that was ran by a third party.
The blue building, wasn't it? That seems to
something like yeah. I think that's right, Cherie. But it was a third party.
About?
I'm talking about all the Manitowoc County cases.
Okay.
When they would move case files. My point being is that in saying this is that this third party had access to prosecutor files, which I've always found just weird as hell. But I mean, I guess they do what they got to do.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think this we're talking about here, retrieving Allen's files out of Avery's boxes is exactly what you pointed out a minute ago. One other thing that I should have mentioned prior to this, I can't remember the exact date, but it was around this time frame. I think it was mid-month, or I'd have to look. And we will later on. I'm going to do a mega special on Gregory Allen and try to cram everything in there that I can. But it was around this time frame when the arrest warrant from Hennepin County, Minnesota was signed for his arrest. It was this month here. And I can't help but believe that there was some sweaty people in Wisconsin Authority about this not getting out to the media. I have to believe that.
Yeah.
I could be wrong. I could be wrong, but I don't think I am.
September 05, you're saying.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
And that warrant was not served for 27 months. Stephen and
Yeah.
Brendan had already been long sentenced to prison. They were gone. The cases were over. Things had settled down. That's when they finally served the arrest warrant, and he got a sweetheart deal out of it. He beat the hell out of this woman in Minnesota. He assaulted her. Downstairs assaulted her, I mean. Left his DNA, and that's how they got him. So it's a horrible, horrible case. And he basically got away with it. Basically. Because of the way they sentenced him. It's terrible. Anyway.
He got away with pennies.
He did get away with pennies.
Mm-hmm.
Because at that time, the statute of limitations had passed. So, yeah, he did. And it's hard to tell you what else he got away with. I wouldn't be surprised if there's not bodies tied to him around the country. I'm serious about that, too. This guy's a monster. So, anyway, sorry for the interruption. I just wanted to get this pointed out because it's important in the overall of the case. And, this is, just a few months prior to everything, all hell breaking loose here in a couple months. Anyway, we're at...
line 14.
Yeah. Yep. You go ahead whenever you're ready, Kay.
Okay. Do you know why? We'll strike that. Were you aware that there was this analysis going on at some time prior to September 3rd, or was it news to you?
I was vaguely aware that was being done, yes.
Was anybody in the office assigned to that case at that time?
No.
Well, do you know how it came to be that the Avery file in September of 2003 was in Rohrer's office? How had it gotten there? Where had it been obtained from?
Object as to multiple form.
Oh, you're right. I'll withdraw the. I'll just ask you, do you know where it came from and how it got there?
I believe that it was there from when Mr. Fitzgerald was there, and that it was just still there. It was not an active file in the sense that Mr. Rohrer had been looking at it, or I or anyone else in our office.
Okay. After Mr. Rohrer got the information that he did from the crime lab and spoke with you about it, did you make any effort to track down any further information concerning Gregory Allen?
I think we did. I think we looked into whether he had previously been charged in Manitowoc County or any other county. I think we looked at CCAP, and in an effort to see whether he had been charged or convicted of previous crimes.
What did you find?
Well, I do recall finding that he had been convicted of the crime alleged in the criminal complaint that was in the Avery file approximately a year earlier. I did note that the DA at the time, Dennis Vogel, was also the prosecutor in that case and was present at the sentencing hearing on that case. I think I noted the disposition. I don't remember if I don't recall exactly what it is at this time. My recollection, though, is that it was a fine. It was a lewd and lascivious,
Lascivious.
lascivious. Yeah, I know how. Bleh. It was a lewd and lascivious charge, I believe, and the result was a fine, if I'm recalling correctly.
What were the underlying factual circumstances of that case, if you recall?
That Mr. Allen had been on a beach fairly close to where the Burnson assault, the victim's assault in this case, took place, and that it involved a different woman approximately a year prior to the assault in question here. That the victim alleged that a man was chasing her. I believe that he had dropped his shorts or something to that effect and had attempted to grab her while she was on the beach, I believe, walking.
Okay. Well, do you have any recollection of whether or not the document that you, or the documents, police reports and or charging documents, whatever documents you found when you first went into the Avery file and found these documents about Gregory Allen, do you recall whether any of those documents had any identifying stamp on them indicating that they had been provided by anybody to the state public defender's office?
I recall specifically that they did not have such a stamp.
Okay. I understand this from Mark Rohrer's testimony this morning, but I'll ask you about it. At some point, as I understand it, you and he obtained from the sheriff's department a record of Gregory Allen's criminal records.
Yes.
I want to
Can
pause
you
here one more time. I'm sorry. I'm going to pause here one more time because now he's just talked about it was up above here. He's talking about going into CCAP. Okay, and that's their, I guess, criminal activity thing that prosecutors have access to. Here's my point, and I'll let you continue on. Why had this arrest from Minnesota entered into that? Again, I don't know how that shit works, but apparently, they clearly went in and tried to look up his record in their system. I do not understand why these charges, this arrest warrant from Minnesota, was not entered into this.
Sure.
Again, well, I mean, maybe somebody out there in the world can, reasonably explain that to me because I really want to understand it. I don't. I really don't. I mean, other than just keeping it, off the radar. Again, we're right in the month this arrest warrant was signed. They had to know. They went in June and took his DNA at the Wisconsin prison. There's no way that the AG's office and probably certain members, at least certainly of the DOJ, did not know that occurred. No way. I don't believe that.
What's going on?
Sure.
Anyway,
I just wanted to point that out, that they went into their system and didn't find this arrest warrant from Minnesota. Here we are in September of 2005, and I want to know why. Continue on whenever you're ready.
Can you tell me how that came about?
I believe we went to the dispatch center at the sheriff's department, asked them to run a record check on Mr. Allen. The concern was, where was Mr. Allen now?
What did you find out from that record check?
That he had been convicted in a Brown County case, I believe in 1995, and was serving a prison term as a result of that conviction. That conviction was also a type of a sexual assault charge. I believe an entry into a home in Brown County.
Do you have any recollection about how proximate in time it was that you went to the dispatch center and got that information as compared with when you received the information from the crime lab?
Couple days.
Okay. So would it be fair to say that you and Mark Rohrer were looking at the time for whatever information you could find out about Gregory Allen's criminal record?
Among other things.
You want to enlarge on that? What the other things what the other things were?
Well, we were looking primarily into any information that would confirm that indeed Mr. Allen committed this crime back in 1985 and not Mr. Avery. We wanted to be certain before we stipulated and agreed with the Innocence Project that Mr. Avery did not commit this crime and that Mr. Allen did.
Well, and at some point, your search satisfied you in that respect?
Yes.
Okay. I want to back up a little bit to what happened immediately after you received the information from Mr. Rohr that indicated in Exhibit 123 and that you told us about. And I'm going to ask you this question with reference to you yourself, and not you and Mr. Rohr. To whom did you next speak about what had been the information that you had received from Mr. Rohr that he in turn had received from the crime lab? To whom did you next speak about that?
I don't recall.
Of course not.
Okay. Well, at some point you spoke with Brenda Peterson and Beverly Badker about this.
Mr. Cavalli, object to the form.
Did you?
I'm not so sure about that. I don't believe I did. If I did, it was during a conversation with other people present, a general conversation. I'm relatively certain that I did not individually speak with either of them at any time since this.
All right. Do you have a recollection of this sort of general gathering that you're talking about? What occasioned that?
Vague as far as the recollection. What occasioned it? Nothing specific. And in terms of the timing, probably as, weeks or at most a month went on. It wasn't a particularly meaningful discussion, I guess, from my standpoint anyway.
Well, at some point, did Mr. Rohr make an announcement to people in the office about what he had found out from the crime lab?
He probably did.
All right. And you and he made a trip to the Attorney General's office in Madison at some time relatively soon after you got the information from the crime lab?
Yes.
Okay. What was the reason for going to Madison?
Mr. Rohr had decided that it would be appropriate to request the Attorney General to look at this in an independent sense. And we were taking the boxes, the 3 or 4 boxes that are part of this file, physically taking them to the Attorney General, and also present ourselves for any questions that they had.
Why were you taking the boxes to the Attorney General?
I think at some point we felt that it would be the best way to handle this in terms of our office if there was to be any claim of improper conduct from the office, the district attorney's office back in 1985, that we not be the ones taking in information or making any type of conclusion, since it is the same office through a different district attorney years later. I guess the legal thing is to avoid the appearance of impropriety.
And by the time you went to Madison, you had received information from people within the Manitowoc District Attorney's Office about the Stephen Avery matter and Gregory Allen. Is that correct?
Form of the question.
You can answer.
I believe Mr. Rohr had received some information from people within the office, and I secondarily, perhaps through him, would have received that information.
And what was your understanding of what that information was?
Mr. Cavalli, object to form.
Yeah, I think you're asking him to speculate. Go ahead.
Okay. Only that Ms. Badker and Ms. Peterson had apparently expressed some concern to Mr. Vogel at the time that it wasn't Mr. Avery who was the assailant, but that it indeed was a Mr. Allen.
And this information that was provided by Miss Badker and Miss Peterson was information, as far as you know, that they provided to Mark Rohrer and he then told you about?
I really don't have a clear recollection of exactly how that came to that, to understand that or to know that.
All right. But you do have a clear recollection that you knew it by the time that you were on your way to Madison?
I have a clear recollection that I knew it within a month of the DNA information coming back from the crime lab. Whether it was before going to Madison or not, I don't know.
Okay, well, let me show you something here. I'll ask you to take a moment with this. This is Exhibit 5 in these depositions, and it's a Department of Justice investigatory report. I'll direct your attention. I mean, take your time with the whole thing if you'd like, but I direct your attention in particular to the second to the last and the third to the last paragraphs on page 5614, which is the Bates stamp number.
I have reviewed that.
Okay. May I see it for a moment? I'm gonna read it into the record, paragraph by paragraph. Soon after the mistake became public knowledge within the Manitowoc County Courthouse, the current district attorney, Mark Rohrer, started receiving information that people within the courthouse never believed these crimes were committed by Avery. These people all believed Allen committed the crime. Some of these individuals even stated to DA Rohrer that they made these concerns known to either the district attorney at the time, Dennis Vogel, or the Manitowoc County Sheriff, Tom Kasurik. Was that information, that's end quote, was that information that you and Mark Rohrer provided to the Attorney General's office when you went to Madison?
Mr. Cavalli, objection form.
It sounds like Mr. Rohrer provided that information according to that person's account of what he provided to them. I have no reason to doubt that that's not the case.
Mr. Cavalli, move to strike. Lack of foundation.
It's a fucking deposition. You don't need foundation. What is he talking about?
He just
He's
has
talking
to.
to the judge who will look at this later.
Whatever. It's improper objection. Isn't it,
Well,
Cherie?
I don't think so.
I've never done a deposition, so I can't
Yeah, I
say.
mean, they try to get these. I've read up and talked to Travis and Tracy, and these lawyers they want to get these things on record in case it comes up later. That lawyer can say, "Well, Judge, I objected to that on lack of foundation, and because I don't like what he's saying." And remember, just as a refresher, real quick, it was Brenda Peterson, Beverly Badker, and Joe Martins that were the three office ladies that were talking about this 1985 case, and they didn't really believe that it was Avery, but Allen, because Allen had been in the office before, and they noticed the hair and his hair, and versus, I guess, this tracing that.
Sketch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And they said no, it's Allen, because as we all know, Avery didn't have his hair wasn't styled that way.
Curly. Yeah.
That's right. Nope, it wasn't. So, all right, continue on.
Were you present at the meeting when Mr. Rohrer provided this information to representatives of the Attorney General's office?
I was certainly present during the meeting that Mr. Rohrer provided the information he did to the AG's office. Now, Whether I have a specific recollection of that piece, namely that those people in the office had expressed concerns to him, that they had told officials at the time that it wasn't Mr. Avery. I don't know that for sure, I guess, is all I'm saying. I believe that's probably the case.
Well, tell me your best recollection of what either you or Mr. Rohr said to the people at the Attorney General's office about that subject.
Object, compound.
My best recollection is that Mr. Rohr probably did tell them that. He was, I would say, the primary, being the district attorney, the person who led off in the information that was given to the Attorney General's office. And I suppose my best recollection is that was stated, especially given the fact that I've reviewed what you have there.
Especially given the fact what?
That I've reviewed what you've shown to me in terms of the AG's recollection.
All right. Do you remember whether Mr. Rohr or you identified the people in the DA's office who had provided this information?
That was probably done
And it was, and was
by
it
Mr. Rohr, I would think.
was it Miss Peterson and Miss Badker who were identified?
Again, my best recollection is that's correct.
All right. Were there other people included within this phrase "people within the courthouse" who never believed these crimes were committed by Avery, who were identified by you or Mr. Rohr to the representatives of the Attorney General's office?
Whether it was at that time or later, I believe that a Jill Mertens, former secretary to the district attorney's office during Mr. Vogel's admin, was probably mentioned, her name.
All right. Anybody else who was mentioned to your knowledge?
Not that I recall.
How about the identification by Mr. Rohrer to representatives of the Attorney General of any persons within the Sheriff's Department?
I really don't recall.
Do you have any recollection of attending a meeting with Sheriff Peterson in his office in which the matter of the Avery prosecution and Gregory Allen was discussed?
Yes, I do.
Well, can you tell me your best recollection of who was at that meeting?
I believe that Deputy Inspector Beck was present, Mr. Rohr, myself, Sheriff Peterson, and perhaps Deputy Inspector Mike Bushman. Not certain of the last one.
All right. Do you recall whether or not Steve Rowlands, the county's corporation counsel, was there?
I don't believe he was at that particular meeting.
Okay. Do you remember how it came to be that meeting was even set up?
Mr. Cavalli, form.
I don't remember.
All right. Was it called by you and Mr. Rohr?
I really don't know.
All right. Do you have any recollection about whether Sheriff Peterson produced any files or records concerning Stephen Avery and or Gregory Allen at that meeting?
He may have had the Allen information regarding the record checks that we had requested of the dispatch earlier. Perhaps the photo array in the assault case in 1985.
What was the subject matter of the meeting?
I think the subject matter was basically a recognition that, that Mr. Allen was very likely the assailant here, that Mr. Avery was not, that there will be a press inquiries regarding that it is what it is, that we are confident, the DA's office, that Mr. Avery should be released from prison as soon as possible. There may have been, some discussion about the photo array, that we would like to see it, that Mr. Rohr and I would like to see it, and that Sheriff Peterson thought we should look at too, just to see how it was conducted. And I believe part of the focus was on Mr. Allen and how similar or not similar to the description by the victim and Mr. Avery was Mr. Allen and whether he was in the photo array or not.
What did you find out about that?
Mr. Allen was not in the photo array. His physical appearance and height and weight and such were pretty consistent with the victim's description of the assailant at that time.
Did you ever find out whether or not there was a booking photograph of Gregory Allen that was available on the evening of July 29th, 1985, when Mrs. Bernson had been attacked and the sheriff called for some photos to be brought over? Whether there was an actual booking photo of Gregory Allen from the 1983 offense that you've already told us about that was available.
My best recollection is that there was not a booking photo of Mr. Allen. I could be mistaken, but that's my best recollection.
When you say that, do you mean not available when you went to the meeting or not available on the evening of July 29th?
I guess I mean when we were at the dispatch center. I don't know about what was or was not available on the date of the original assault in 1985.
Do you have any recollection throughout the course of these events, since you found out about them on September 3rd, as to whether or not there was at one time a booking photo of Gregory Allen that was made in connection with the 1983 offense that subsequently was either lost or destroyed or for some reason disposed of?
I have no information about that.
All right. Well, do you recall whether at the meeting with Sheriff Peterson there was any discussion about the matter of Gregory Allen as being identified in 1995 as having been Penny Bernson's assailant? And then there was some discussion with Sheriff God, I'm sorry, guys. I'm butchering the hell out of this shit. Sheriff Kasurich about that. Holy shit! Sorry.
If you could read, I think I lost you. Probably my losing more than you're saying, but I lost it.
At the meeting that took place in Sheriff Peterson's office with the people that you've described to us, was there any discussion about the fact that it had come to light in 1995 from some source or sources that it was actually Gregory Allen who had attacked Mrs. Bernson and not Stephen Avery?
Mr. Bascom, object to the form of the question.
I don't recall that information discussed at that time during that meeting. Might have been, might not have been.
Okay, I'm going to show you what's been marked as Exhibit 124 and ask if you'd just take a moment and examine that.
Yeah, I've taken a look at it.
Okay, and first of all, is this a document that you've seen before today?
I think I have.
Well, it's dated September 18th of 03. Doug Jones was an attorney in the DA's office at that time, right?
Still is, yes.
Okay, a colleague of yours?
Yes.
And was this information that's in 124 made available to you at the time that this memo was prepared?
Yeah. I think by the time that memo was prepared, I was aware of the contents of that memo. My earlier, I guess, hesitation was I don't recall that the contents of that memo was discussed at the meeting with Sheriff Peterson sometime earlier.
Well, all right.
It may have been, may not have been.
Okay, was any further investigation to your knowledge of the facts that are made in this memorandum about the information that was provided to Sheriff Kachurik? God damn it. And how he
Kasurek.
responded? Kasurek? Oh my God. Oh. And how he responded? Was there any further investigation of that by you or Mr. Rohr as far as you know?
No, I don't know.
Okay, so was there any further discussion to your knowledge of the information that's stated in here about Mr. Allen by you and Mr. Rohr with either Colburn or Link?
There very well may have been. It was likely from Mr. Rohr. I, vaguely remember this topic. The contents of that memo being discussed here and here and there over the following weeks. I was more of a receiver of information. I was not directing anybody to look into anything. But I do recall the same topic coming up once or twice more.
And what further information, if any, that you recall, did you receive about that?
My recollection is just that it was confirmed that indeed that Sheriff Kasurek had said upon hearing that somebody else did this, that we've got the right guy and that he should not concern himself. My impression is that that was what people were saying was the case. I don't have personal knowledge that he said that, but
Well, okay, when you say what people were saying was the case, can you identify the people that you're talking about there?
I believe it would be Officer Colburn, and he's the only one I can say with any level of certainty that confirmed that. Now, what one reads into, quote, I think we have the right guy, end quote, is another story. I'm not speaking to that issue. But as far as that having been allegedly said by Sheriff Kasurek, that is my understanding of Deputy Colburn's recollection of what was said.
All right. And do you have any understanding of what Mr. Link says about that?
I don't.
Okay. And who was your source of information as to what Colburn was saying?
Probably Mark, Mr. Rohr.
All right. Well, to your knowledge, was the information concerning what Colburn said and how Kasurek responded provided by Rohr to the Attorney General's office?
I believe it probably was.
And what's the basis for that belief?
Just from the general way in which Mark, the district attorney, and I, for whatever it's worth, were handling this case. All information we had was provided to the Attorney General.
To your knowledge, did Mark Rohr make any notes of any of the interviews he had with Brenda Peterson or Beverly Badker or Colburn or Sheriff Peterson?
I don't know whether he did or not.
Did you?
No.
Is there some reason you didn't?
Mr. Govelli. Well, objection. He didn't lack a foundation. He never said he interviewed these people.
You can answer.
I didn't make any notes of whatever conversations I heard. My main focus was on whether or not Mr. Avery should be released and quickly. And after that, I think I memoed up a few things. A call from Mr. Vogel that I'm sure you're aware of.
Now I am.
And some conversations that I think I had with Penny Burnson, the alleged victim, and I think with Janine Geske as well. But I did not memo up much in the office. Frankly, There wasn't a lot discussed in the office about this case early on, and Mr. Rohr and I were very busy dealing with this case as well as the usual caseload in the DA's office.
Do you believe that you turned over to the Attorney General's office the information that you received from the dispatcher's office at the Sheriff's Department about Gregory Allen's record?
I don't know. If we didn't, it was because we didn't feel that it was the focus. The focus of that portion of us in checking Mr. Allen's records were to ensure that Mr. Avery was not the guilty party here. And sending the file to the Attorney General's office and asking for their assistance did not deal with that issue. We'd already convinced ourselves that Mr. Avery was not guilty of this crime.
Well, but you had broader concerns than that as well, right? You had questions respecting the fact that Stephen Avery had been exonerated and Gregory Allen having been inculpated as to what Gregory Allen may have done to other persons subsequent to July 30th of 1985.
Mr. Covelli, objection to form.
And whether or not, and whether or not you would be prosecuting with respect to any further and Gregory Allen? With anything further and Gregory Allen?
Certainly, with respect to whether we'd be prosecuting Mr. Allen for this assault in 1985, I remember feeling when we found out that he was in prison in Brown County for a very lengthy period of time, 30 years or something, that I remember feeling relieved and glad that he was in prison and had no other information that he was responsible for other crimes other than this 1985 assault.
Uh-huh.
Hey, can I get someone to take over my part for a little while I run some dinner to my mom real quick?
Yeah, I'll do it. I'll take care of it.
I'm sorry.
You're fine.
Sorry.
You're fine.
It.
No,
I'll be
you're
back
fine.
in 5 minutes.
That's fine. Okay. That was an interesting, while we're paused here, that was an interesting little statement that Griesbach made. And again, this information from the Minnesota case not being entered into CCAP. I don't get it. Maybe that's something that doesn't go in CCAP from another state, but I would think that it would.
Yeah.
Because it's still a crime associated with Gregory Allen. I would hate to think that the state would have to run a different report in order to obtain that information. That doesn't sound right.
I can't remember what CCAP stands for. Some kind of database for everybody that gets arrested.
Calumet County something, or no?
No,
I've heard that in other cases.
Somebody gave
Criminal.
when a criminal complaint or something. Somebody gave the acronym up. It said the whole thing. I can't remember who it was. Somebody that was in one of these depositions, though. We could probably look it up, what CCAP means, to be honest.
Yeah.
I just looked up Wisconsin and CCAP. It says Consolidated Court Automation Program, but I'm not sure if that's what.
That probably is it. That's probably that.
Yeah.
Or yeah, probably. It's probably something of that nature. They just named it that acronym, CCAP.
It looks like it's, just reading the first sentence of the description, it looks like it's for Wisconsin. But you would think they would have something that's between the states too, some kind of database, you know?
I would think, and again, I would hate to think that they would have to pull up a second database in order to capture that information on somebody that's already that's incarcerated in their state.
Oh, yeah, good point.
So, all right. 1985 or 1995?
1985 assault.
Well, certainly he was guilty of the 1995 assault, right?
In Brown County?
Yeah.
Yes, and I was relieved that that was the case. But we didn't have to do anything about that case. It had already been prosecuted and he was sentenced.
But you had to make a decision about whether or not to prosecute him for the Penny Bernstein assault.
That's right.
And you had to look into the question of whether or not he might have assaulted other women than the 1995 victim and what, if anything, to do about that.
I had no information that he had assaulted anybody other than the 95 victim and Penny Bernstein, and that he was on the beach a year prior to the Penny Bernstein assault and arguably attempted to assault a woman there and at the least was involved in lewd and lascivious behavior with her.
And you and Mr. Rohrer went to a meeting with Perry Kingsbury and Tom Bergner as part of your follow-up to the information that you had received from the crime lab. And for those that don't know, Kingsbury and Bergner were the top guys at the Manitowoc City Police Department. Just to clarify that.
Uh-huh.
Go ahead, Cap.
Yes.
All right. And do you remember when that took place relative to when you had received the information from the crime lab?
Within a week, I would think.
Okay. And do you remember what occasion that meeting came about that you went to talk with those two gentlemen?
No.
Okay. Was that meeting initiated by you folks or initiated by them?
I really don't remember.
At the time you went to the meeting, did you have any knowledge whatsoever of who Thomas Bergner was with respect to the Stephen Avery Gregory Allen matter?
I knew Tom Bergner well, worked with him, and I think I understand your question. I believe that I knew that he had expressed doubt to Sheriff Kasurik about the assailant as to whether Mr. Avery was the assailant, and in fact that it could have been Mr. Allen.
And you knew that before you got to the meeting with Kingsbury and let me start that again. And you knew that before you got to the meeting with Kingsbury and Bergner.
Probably in a real general way.
Okay. What was the source of your knowledge? I mean, I'm not talking about what you find out in the meeting.
Right.
I'm talking about what you're carrying in your head into the meeting and what its source or sources were at the time, as best as you can recall.
I really don't recall. It's just a general, whether we heard from Chief Kingsbury or Detective Bergner through a phone conversation that I had, third or fourth hand. It was not a direct conversation that sticks out in my mind. What does stick out is what we were told at that meeting.
Okay, well, we'll get to that. We'll get there.
Okay.
But whatever may be the chain of the 3 or 4 people, I guess all I can ask of you is whatever the source of your knowledge was, that general knowledge that you described as you went into the meeting, from whom did it come to you specifically? Was it Mark Rohr?
I really don't know. If I knew about it, it was likely Mark.
Could it have been anybody else?
I don't know.
Well, let me suggest this to you. Had you spoken to Penny Bernstein by then?
I'm sure I had.
Had Penny Bernstein discussed with you information provided to her by Tom Bergner?
Yes, she did.
Okay. Tell me what you recall of that.
Again, the timing of all this as to whether Penny and I spoke about this particular matter, the Tom Bergner matter, prior to my meeting with Sheriff Kingsbury and Detective Bergner, I don't know about the timing of that, but I do recall eventually speaking with Penny about the fact that Tom had expressed some concern to Sheriff Sheriff Kasurik, that in fact this sounded like Allen and not Avery.
Okay. Do you recall whether before you went to the meeting with Bergner and Kingsbury, you had had any conversations with Janine Geske about the Avery Allen matter?
I recall having a lot of conversations with both Mrs. Burnson and Janine Geske, but the timing of it, again, I don't recall. I'm not very good with timing, frankly, but I believe I probably did speak with Janine early on before that meeting with Bergner and Kingsbury.
And what information that you described as general that you may have had going into the meeting with Kingsbury and Bergner, had you discussed that with Mark Rohr before you got into the meeting with Kingsbury and Bergner? Meaning, was he, as far as you knew, from what you knew, carrying the same kind of general information? Mr. Covelli, objection to the form.
I don't know.
Okay. You don't remember whether you had talked it over with him?
Right, I don't remember.
Do you remember whether you were informed before you went to the Kingsbury-Bergner meeting by Janine Geske about a phone call that Penny Bernstein had received from somebody within the Manitowoc City Police Department suggesting to Miss Bernstein that Stephen Avery may not have been the person who attacked her, and it may have been some other person?
I lost you.
Okay. I'm focusing on the period of time before you step inside the room with Kingsbury and Bergner. And I'm asking whether you remember Janine Geske having spoken to you before that time and told you about Penny Bernstein having received a phone call from somebody from the Manitowoc City Police Department saying that that person, and this is back in 1985, had been suggesting to Penny Bernstein that Stephen Avery wasn't her assailant, that it was somebody else.
I don't remember talking with Janine exactly about that, or it's the quote, somebody from the police department calling Penny and telling her that, end quote, that I don't recall hearing from Janine.
Okay. Do you recall at all any time having heard that from Janine?
I recall speaking with Janine about the fact that Detective Bergner talked to Kasurik back in 85 about his belief that it may not have been Avery and it might have been Allen. Beyond that, in terms of detail about who told who what and when, I can't help you.
Do you have any recollection at any time now of having spoken to Penny Bernstein in which she told you that somebody from the Manitowoc City PD had called her and said to her, "You may not have had the right guy here. Are you confident about this?" And she in turn called Kasurik?
That sounds familiar.
Okay. Tell me what your best recollection is.
The Detective Bergner, I guess I was under the impression it was him, had informed Penny that it could have been this other person, and that Penny, being concerned to make sure she had the right person, talked to Kasurik about that.
And what did she say how Kasurik responded?
I have a hard time recalling exactly what he said, but my impression was that I really can't answer that without speculating or trying to remember something that I don't recall right now.
Can you give me your best recollection? Mr. Covelli, objection, no foundation.
She didn't, I had the impression that her information, the information she gave to Sheriff Kasurik, was not acted upon or considered too seriously.
Do you have any recollection of Penny telling you that the way Kasurik responded to what she was telling him was actually quite similar to the way Kasurik is said by Colburn in Exhibit 124 to have responded specifically, quote, "We've got the right guy, don't concern yourself," end quote.
Mr. Mayor, form of the question.
Something to that effect.
Okay. Now, I'd like to ask you what you indicated that you do recall, and that is what you found out at the meeting with Kingsbury and Kosuric concerning the Stephen Avery Gregory Allen. Mr. Cavelli, I think you misspoke. Kingsbury and Bergner. Oh, you said that. I'm
Sorry.
sorry.
Oh, Kingsbury and Bergner?
I'm sorry, I misspoke.
That's all right.
Let me rephrase it. Focusing on the meeting where you and Mr. Rohr went to talk with Kingsbury and Bergner. Tell me your best recollection of what was said by them at that meeting.
Tom Bergner told us that he recalls going to Sheriff Kosuric at the time of this assault, shortly after it, and telling the sheriff that he had this other fella, Gregory Allen, under surveillance for a week or two prior to this assault, and that it seemed to fit his MO, that he expressed real reservation about whether it was Mr. Avery, and that did this and that, and whether it was Mr. Avery that did this, and that they really need to look at Mr. Allen.
And did Bergner go on to tell you how the sheriff responded to him?
I believe he did.
And what did he say?
I don't remember what he said, but Detective Bergner, and again, I wasn't there obviously during the conversation between Bergner and Kosuric, but Detective Bergner, the impression I had was that the sheriff didn't really want to go too into that information and believed that he had the right person, that Mr. Avery was the assailant.
You said earlier in your testimony today that you knew Tom Bergner,
Yes,
and I had the sense that you know him professionally.
yes,
And would it be fair to say that you knew him well,
yeah,
and that you'd worked with him over the years?
yes.
And what do you think of him professionally? Do you have have an opinion concerning his reputation and concerning your own thoughts about him?
Yes,
Mr. Mayor, form and relevance.
You can answer.
his reputation, I believe, is that he's a good cop, an honest cop. And my working with him and my own working relationship with him was always, I have a lot of respect for Detective Bergner.
Okay. At the meeting that took place with Kingsbury and Bergner, were there any documents that they produced for you?
Not that I recall.
Okay. Were there any documents present?
Not that I recall.
Do you recall whether Bergner elaborated on who was involved in the surveillance of Gregory Allen? And when I say quote unquote who was involved, I mean within the city of
Right?
Manitowoc Police Department.
I don't. It may have been detectives. It may have been Bergner. He was a detective at the time, and at that time, and then he was captain when we met him in 2003. It might have been one of the other detectives. I don't know.
Okay. Did he by chance, I shouldn't put it that way, did he by in any means describe to you whether the decision on his part to go and talk to Kosuric was a decision he made completely on his own, or was it something that had been discussed amongst the officers in the and perhaps even his superiors in the city department before he went to see Kosuric?
I had the impression it was Tom Bergner himself.
Okay, all right. Did Kingsbury offer any thoughts of his own? Strike that. Was Perry Kingsbury the chief of the city police department or city department at the time you went and interviewed him and Bergner?
Yeah, that we were present together. We didn't really interview them, but yes, he was police chief at that time.
Okay. Did he have any thoughts of his own to offer about what Bergner was telling you?
Not really.
Okay. Can you fix this in time, the meeting that you had with Bergner and Kingsbury, relative to the information that you received on or about September 3rd from Mark Rohr after he has spoken with the people at the crime lab?
1 second, Jack.
Yep.
I believe it would have been anywhere from a day after to 2 or 3 days after. So September 4th, 5th, or 6th, somewhere around there. Certainly before we went to the AG's office.
Okay. And when you went to the AG's office, to your recollection, did you or Rohr inform the AG's office about what Bergner had told you?
I don't recall. Probably, but I don't recall for certain.
Okay. By the time that you met with Kingsbury and Bergner, you had already met with Ken Peterson.
I believe so.
Okay. Was Bergner discussed at all in the meeting that you had with Peterson?
I don't believe so.
So you don't have any impressions that what you heard from Bergner at the meeting that you had with him was something that Ken Peterson was aware of?
I don't have any impression one way or the other.
All right. After you had the meeting with Bergner and Kingsbury, did you provide the information that you heard there in any conversation? Did you provide the information to Janine Geske in any conversation you had with her?
Probably. Specific recollection? No. But probably.
Okay. Did you provide the information that was given to you by Bergner in any conversation you had with Penny Bernston?
Again, probably.
Okay. Did you yourself have any conversation with Tom Bernston after the September 3rd information that Rohr had told you that he had received from the crime lab?
I did.
One or more?
1 or 2 at most.
Can you fix them approximately in time?
The first one is likely soon after we found out. One of my roles was to let Penny know what happened, to let Penny know of the new evidence that it appeared that Mr. Avery was not the assailant. And I think initially, Tom answered the phone, and I let him know before letting Penny know, is my recollection of how this worked out.
So this is a very early on after you get the information from the crime lab.
Yes.
Okay. Any further discussion with Tom on that occasion that you recall?
No, I don't recall.
All right. And was there then a later conversation you had with Tom Bernston?
I believe there was one other conversation.
Let me just go back to the first one for a moment. Do you recall anything further that Tom Bernston said to you when you provided this information to him?
Not offhand, no.
All right. And what was the content of the second conversation
It was,
with Tom Bernston?
right. Either Tom called me or I called Tom, and I don't recall exactly the purpose of the conversation. Perhaps it was when Mr. Avery, when was Mr. Avery going to be released? It seemed to me it was something along those lines. I'm sure there was some discussion at some point about how did this happen, meaning how did Mr. Avery get charged and convicted?
Did you respond to that at all? Tell him what your thoughts were about this?
I probably did in some way. I don't recall any.
Do you remember in substance what you said to him?
No.
Okay. How about to Penny? Did you have such a conversation with her at any time?
Yes.
Tell me what you remember of that.
Well, initially my conversations with Penny was just about that Mr. Avery was found not to be her assailant and that Mr. Allen was. She was concerned that Mr. Allen was, in custody and that he was not out to commit other crimes, and for her own safety, I suppose, was concerned whether or not we were going to be filing charges against Mr. Allen. And there was discussion regarding how this case occurred in 1985 during some of those conversations.
Tell me what you remember of those discussions.
I know that Penny spoke about the identification procedure when she was up at the hospital. Her best recollection regarding the composite drawing and the photo array, her best recollection regarding, well, that was primarily it.
Hey, I got to mute for just 1 second. I apologize. Just take me a second.
No worries, Jack. Are you back, Kay? I guess she's not back yet. Yeah, I'd like to know what Penny had to say about the identification procedure, the hospital, and her recollection of the composite drawing and the photo array.
I would too.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm back. Yeah, that would be really interesting because there's we've talked about it, but there was a huge flub about the photo array and how it was arranged and all that, and of course the missing booking photo never been
Yeah.
found, and we've tried to get it and had no such luck. So,
Well, I would like to hear specifically about the sketch,
yes,
the composite
absolutely.
drawing, because I remember that Brenda, when we were doing our interview,
Yep.
told us during the trial that Penny testified that, he would draw something and show it to her, and then she would correct the nose or whatever.
Yep.
But it's my belief that he had, before he ever turned it to show it to Penny, that he had the basic outline of the hair, which he had traced or, looked at the photo and done, and the
Oh,
face shape, and,
I'm convinced of it. Absolutely, I'm
before
convinced
he
of it.
ever turned it around and showed her. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, the also the fact that Kasork was there, he was involved immediately at the hospital, and he
Yeah.
had I can't remember, I don't remember if it was Dvorak or Morris. It was one of those officers though. He had called and he brought him a stack of booking photos and took them directly to Kasork.
Yep. Who put him in his pocket.
Yep. Put him in his pocket.
Mhm.
And to this day, we don't know what all those photos contained because it's not, as far as we know, not recorded anywhere. So,
But he wrote on the back of Stephen's
yep.
earlier
Yep.
mugshot from earlier that year, save this or something like that.
Something like that. Yeah. Yeah. It was
Yeah.
really strange.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay.
When he had curly hair.
That's right. When he had curly hair.
He-
That's exactly right.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I think you finished that sentence. So where it says primarily it, right? Yeah, you did.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Did you tell her at some point about what Bergner had told you?
Probably.
What did she say?
Penny was upset that information did not appear to have been taken too seriously at the sheriff's department.
My Sheriff Kasork.
Right.
Okay. At some point, Mr. Rohr has told us you and he met with Sheriff Kasork.
I don't think that's correct. I don't recall meeting. In fact, I'm quite certain I did not meet with Sheriff Kasurek. I think Mark did.
And do you have any recollection of what Mark Rohr told you had been his conversation with Sheriff Kasork about what he, Mark Rohr, had found out?
Nothing that's even close to a definite recollection. I'd be speculating.
Okay.
Or I'd be drawing upon a faulty memory.
Vogel called you at some point.
Yes.
When was it relative to when you were informed on or about September 3rd by Rohr of what the crime lab had said to you? About how approximate in time was it to that?
Most a week, I believe.
That's interesting. Okay, and tell me everything you remember of what transcribed in that conversation.
He called me on a Friday, left a message on my voicemail. I was in court, didn't get back to him until, actually, I did not get back to him. He called me on Monday, the next Monday, before I had a chance to get back to him. And I don't recall if he already knew. He must have known. I had no other reason to speak with him. That Mr. Avery was found not to have been the assailant here.
Okay, what did he want?
At some point, he asked me whether there was anything in the Avery file with regard to Mr. Allen.
And what did you tell him?
I told him that I did find in the Avery file a copy of the criminal complaint filed against Mr. Allen regarding the incident a year prior to this assault, and a copy of the police reports involved in that incident as well.
And what did he say?
I believe he asked me whether there was anything else in that file with regard to Mr. Allen.
And what did you tell him? Huh.
I didn't tell Mr. Vogel much. In fact, as I'm thinking of this, I'm not even sure that I told him that I located the Allen complaint in the file. I more or less listened to what Mr. Vogel said and did not say a lot in return.
Were you bothered by the Vogel call?
Not necessarily. No, I don't recall. He sure said he was in his book
Yeah.
that he wrote.
And in
Yep.
ma'am,
And what?
and in ma'am, he said, "Oh, I expected him to. Oh, I'm so sorry," or something like that. But
Right.
Yeah, I don't recall. I also recall that Judge Hazelwood in this case, who signed the order releasing Mr. Avery, suggested, I think, to me that maybe it would be a good idea to let Mr. Vogel know before the media hears about this, just as a courtesy, a professional courtesy. And I'm not sure, as we sit here, that I didn't place the first call to Mr. Vogel and that he was calling me back. And on his second call back, I spoke with him.
But whatever the sequence was, as far as you recall, there was only one actual conversation between the two of you.
Yes,
And that's a conversation about which you made a memorandum.
yes.
And do you recall whether that's a conversation that you discussed at any time with Janine Geske?
I'm sure I did.
Do you remember what you told her?
I don't think I was bothered, to go back to your earlier question, by the fact that he called me. And I told Janine that I was bothered by sort of the tone and the tone of the conversation.
Were you finished?
Yeah.
Did you explain to Janine what you meant by that? What was it about the tone that was bothersome to you?
I thought it was a bit nonchalant for just then, I believe from me. In fact, I know from me, Mr. Vogel's first learning that the person he prosecuted and convicted of this sexual assault, who had spent years in prison, was not in fact the assaulter, the assailant. I don't know Mr. Vogel, but again, if that were me, I would have reacted differently.
Do you recall at any time telling Janine Geske that you thought that Vogel's behavior in this case should be looked into, especially with respect to what you had found out from Bernstein?
Bergner?
Bergner.
Bergner, I'm sorry. From Bergner?
I probably did.
Okay.
If I can add, I'm sorry, but
Go ahead.
the primary concern, or one of the other concerns I had in this file, was whether or not the criminal complaint against Mr. Allen and the police reports with regard to Mr. Allen from the incident a year earlier, both of which were in the Avery file, whether those things were turned over to the defense as part of discovery. That was one of my primary concerns throughout.
And did you find out whether or not that they were, Mr. Covelli? Objection, no foundation.
I did not personally. My understanding is the Attorney General concluded that that's their belief. Oh, come on.
And they said it's true, so it's true. Come on.
Right.
The
right.
Attorney General concluded that. Come on.
That's a
Yeah,
that's some
Where did he get the information to conclude that?
that's right. That's exactly right.
That
And to bring it
Stevens
in-
attorneys had that? Give me a
And-
break.
And to bring it into this deposition, come on, please.
Oh, Jesus
All right,
Christ.
Kay's back.
See him pulling at his neck, pulling at the collar of his shirt right now as he's answering questions.
That was Roar.
I mean, I know
That
that's
was-
Roar, but Griesbach wasn't.
But yeah, yeah. He probably was too.
I bet internally he probably was.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, you ready to continue?
Sure.
You go right
Are
ahead.
we on 10?
Yes.
Other than what the Attorney General's belief was, did you find out from any other source whether or not the information that you found in the file had been turned over to the defense?
None.
Well, did you believe it should have been?
Absolutely.
Why?
We have a duty as prosecutors to turn over any information that may be exculpatory to the other side. And I viewed that as potentially exculpatory, as there may be another suspect involved here.
Did you?
Mr. Covelli, I'll object to the foundation. This person has not been identified as an expert witness.
It's a deposition.
Yeah.
Did you ever make a determination or, well, strike that. Did you look at all into the question of whether or not the information that Bergner provided to Kasurik concerning Gregory Allen was in turn provided to Kasurik by Kasurik to Vogel?
I did not.
Do you know whether or not Rohr looked into that at all?
I don't.
Do you know whether or not Rohr discussed that with Kasurik when he met with him?
I don't.
Do you recall whether you discussed with Janine Geske whether the information that Bergner provided to Kasurik was something that was discussed by Kasurik with Vogel?
Mr. Mayor, object to the form.
Mr. Covelli, could I hear the question again? I'm sorry.
Sure, I'll ask it again. Do you recall whether you discussed with Janine Geske the question of whether what Bergner had told Kasurik was something that Kasurik in turn discussed with Vogel?
I don't recall.
Okay. Well, in the period of time between when you received the information from Mark Rohr about what he had heard from the crime lab, which is on September 3rd of 2003, and when you went to see the people in Madison in the Justice Department, do you have any recollection of talking with Rohr about the exposure of Manitowoc County, the sheriff, the DA, in a civil lawsuit by Stephen Avery for damages?
I don't recall any such conversation.
Okay. At any time after you received the information from Rohr that he in turn had received from the crime lab, have you ever discussed this case, Stephen Avery, Greg Allen, with Jim Wiss of the city of Manitowoc?
I don't believe I have.
with any other city of Manitowoc representative
Other than Bert?
other than Kingsbury or Bergner?
Okay. No, I don't believe I have.
Since the time that you received the information from Rohrer that he in turn received from the crime lab, have you discussed this case with Jim Bogert at all?
No, I wanted to.
Oh, I was going to say it looks like you have some regret about that. At any time, have you discussed the case with Risa Evans?
No.
Oh, yeah. Since the time that you received the information that you did from Mark Rohrer about the crimes lab findings, have you had any discussions with Jim Fitzgerald about the case?
I don't think so. No.
Okay. With Alma Anderson about the case?
I don't believe so.
Do you remember whether Alma Anderson was in the office at the time of the Stephen Avery prosecution?
I believe she was in.
Mr. Covelli. Well, I'm going to object. No foundation. Excuse me.
I believe she was not.
She left sometime before that?
Right.
Do you know where she went?
She eventually went to the Kewaunee County DA's office as an assistant DA. And I believe there was a short period when she was in private practice with, I think, with the Dwayne Law Firm here in Manitowoc, DEWANE.
And that was after she left the DA's office and before she went to Kewaunee County?
Kalani.
Kewaunee?
I believe that's correct.
Do you know why she left the DA's office?
I don't. Well, she ran against Mr. Vogel in a contested election. I don't know the exact timing with regard to when she left and that election.
That's it? Oh, that's
Reporter.
it.
Yeah. Reporter. Gentlemen. Of course, of knows. Reporter. There being nothing further for the record, Mr. Covelli, blah, 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 blah.
No.
And then the reporter, I beg your pardon, off the record for a moment, please. They're off the record for a minute. Back on the record, Mr. Covelli. This is Cross. Okay. Just a couple follow-up questions. You had indicated at a time that you had a meeting with Sheriff Peterson that the descriptions of Alan Avery were similar. Do you remember testifying about that subject?
Somewhat similar.
Okay. If I understood it, you may have seen a photograph from the photo array of Mr. Avery dating back to roughly 1985. Is that correct?
Roughly, yes.
But you did not see any photograph of Mr. Allen dating back to that point in time. Is that correct?
I think I eventually did.
Okay. But not at the time of that meeting, right? I mean, not at the
Right.
time of that meeting.
Right.
Okay. Were Mr. Avery and Mr. Allen the same height?
No,
Were they close to the same height?
not really. I think there was 5 or 6 inches different.
Were they the same weight?
No.
Okay. Did they have were their hairlines the same? Did one have receding hairline, one have a full head of hair? Do you remember?
No, I really don't remember.
Mr. Covelli. All right. That's all I have.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. What page are we on?
21.
Anybody else? I have a
54.
follow-up here. Mr. Griesbach, you said in response to one of Mr. Covelli's questions that eventually you did see a photo of Alan dating back to that time.
Yes.
When did that happen and what did you see?
I believe that, whether it was dispatch or someone eventually, and I don't remember how long after this, obtained a photo of Mr. Allen. And what I saw was a person who looked like Mr. Avery, but that was either taller or shorter. I don't remember right now the physical characteristics, but that's what stuck out in my mind, the height difference.
But when you say someone got a photo of Alan, who was that?
I don't know.
Well, how was it brought to your attention?
I don't know.
And you recall checking out the photo?
I recall seeing the photo at some point, but I recall more specifically checking out the relative heights of Mr. Allen and Mr. Avery early on in the case.
Was it a lineup photo?
I think it was a mug shot.
A booking photo?
Yeah.
So how can you tell from a booking photo, which is basically a headshot, what the relative height of...
That information, the relative height and weight, I'm drawing from some other information about Mr. Allen. I recall specifically, and I don't know the source, but I recall specifically knowing the height and weight, or learning the height and weight of Mr. Allen versus the height and weight of Mr. Avery.
In the mugshot that you saw of Alan that dates back to the time in question, did he have a beard?
I don't recall.
Well, as far as you know, the original composite drawing was withdrawn from evidence and is in the possession of Couchet. Is that right?
As far as I know, I have heard that Detective Couchet at some point had the original composite drawing in his residence.
And did he have a booking photograph along with it?
I don't know that.
Did you hear anything about that?
No.
That's all I have.
That's it.
Yep. I'm just when I was looking here, there being nothing further, blah, 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 blah. Okay.
I wished he would have asked Penny or would have asked him what Penny said about the sketch. Dang it.
Yeah, the sketch is interesting. The photographs are too, though. Hey, there's Doc.
Said I don't recall.
Oh yeah.
Sure is.
Just say I don't recall.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I see Doc in the live chat there. What's Doc saying here?
Hey,
this case is unique. You hearing a deep level of corruption and collusion line by line. The depositions caught them out, and it did. Pego had to close the lid on Pandora's box. Yeah, I agree.
Is the Attorney General Brad Schimmel, or that was at the time?
At the time, it was Peg Lautenschlager.
1985, right? No, 2005.
Yeah, 2005. Well, 2000.
When he got exonerated, it was Peg then, too, or do we know?
It was 2003. I don't know if she was still in 2005. I'll have to look.
I'd have to look. I can't remember when she took over, Kay. I can't remember yet, or at this point in time. But she definitely was in 2005 because all this stuff went to her. And, these questions about, and I'm telling you, I'm not just myself, and I looked extensively, but there are others that looked deeper than I did, trying to find these photos that are missing, these booking photos. There's only a few photos of Gregory Allen, and we were never able to locate, as far as we could ever tell, these photographs that are being talked about here. Never.
It said she was governor till January 3rd, 2007. From 2003 to 2007.
There you go.
Gotcha.
Allie missed it. Yeah, I sent you a note, but I know you guys were up pretty late talking last night, so I wasn't sure if you'd get it or not. I was trying to keep up and look at possible questions as we went, but I couldn't do it. There's Becca. Hey, Becca. Nan's live.
I put some questions in the private chat.
Oh, the private chat. Okay. Well, you know what? I'm looking at time-wise, and I'll do whatever you guys want to do. This next deposition is Vernon Clement, and it's 29 pages total, so it's probably going to end up being like 24 pages. You guys want to go ahead and do it, or you want to get out of here and do it next time? I'm good either way.
I'll just say that Eddie just got home. He
Yep.
did not get a deer. He did not freeze his ass off. It's still there, but
Wait till he warms up to tell him I said he was a dumbass.
okay.
And get some food to eat first.
Well, I hate that
Yeah.
he didn't get some venison.
Yeah, damn it.
I know.
Dang it.
Anyway, I won't be able to read now because this is the only warm spot in the house. I'm sure he's going to turn the TV on and such. So
Well, we can do it next time. It's fine. It's no big deal. These are not going anywhere. I just thought, I knew that Griesbach wouldn't take too long, and we might squeeze this one in, but it's not a problem. We can do it next time. It's all good.
You talked about going over that article about
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Can we do
Yeah.
that?
the judge.
yeah, we can. Just a second here.
Thanks, Cherie.
Yeah,
I would
good
have thought
memory.
about that after we logged off.
Yeah, you might like, damn it, Jack's a double dummy because he was going to bring up that article.
No, I would have said, come on, Cherie. That's her job to remind of everything. She doesn't seem to forget things.
No, she's got a mind like a steel trap. Yep, she does. I know y'all can hear my little grandbaby. She has been talking up a storm this afternoon,
how old is
which
she?
is good. She was born. She's 18 months. She's born July 3rd. Yeah,
Yeah.
she's born July 3rd in 2022. Yeah.
She's a cutie.
Yeah, she's a little doll. Brought a lot of joy to all of us. Memories going back of when, our children were, learning to walk and talk and all that. A lot of memories there. So, okay, let me pop this.
Anthony Hill says, ask her to read first, Jack.
Yeah, there you go.
Live at your house, Jack, all the time, or is she visiting?
No, all the time. We bought a house. We bought a house. Yeah, we bought a house together. From a cost standpoint, we were able to get a larger house, property, blah blah blah. Why is this ad like this? What is it doing here? How did I get out of this? Oh, there we go. Maybe that'll do it. Okay, I don't know what's going on here with this web page, but it just went bonkers. All I can see is a bunch of ads. Let me try to refresh this. Okay. There we go. Now I can pop it over. Let's see here. StreamYard. There we go. Yeah, so this is a newspaper article that appeared in the Patch. It's written on January 13th. And
Dang, is that a current photo of Zollner? She looks
I'm going to say yeah.
Hard to know.
I'm going to say yeah. I'm going to say yes, but I'm with Susan. It's really hard to know. I really don't know.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we can go through this and read, and you can see that he really trashes her pretty bad. So I'll start it off here. It says the following opinion column is by John Farrack, editor of Joliet Patch, a former Wisconsin journalist and author of Wrecking Crew, Demolishing the Case Against Stephen Avery, which just published its updated 5th anniversary edition in late November. Wisconsin 2024 now is shaping up to become the biggest year for Stephen Avery, Wisconsin's wrongfully convicted man who was later arrested for murdering auto trader photographer Teresa Halbach just days before retired longtime Manitowoc County Sheriff Tom Kosorek was to testify in Avery's $36 million civil lawsuit against the sheriff and Manitowoc. On Friday, the most well-known and respected wrongful conviction lawyer in the United States, Kathleen Zellner, took to the offense, filing her 57-page post-conviction appeal with the Wisconsin Court of Appeals. Weird things happen in Avery's case after longtime Sheboygan County Judge Angie issued her ruling in August, intended to make sure that Avery remained in Wisconsin prison system for the rest of his life. And here's a tweet that was, I'm sure that was up at the time. As many people in Wisconsin already know, based on previous coverage from the Gannett, Wisconsin media, Suckowitz has been long regarded as a mediocre to lousy judge, even for Wisconsin standards.
Oh, God.
But her performance from August may have been so dreadful that others in power urged her to step down and relinquish any handling of Avery's case going forward. The judge's mistakes were so plainly obvious to anybody familiar with the Emmy Award-winning docuseries at Netflix, Making a Murderer, that one has to wonder why Judge Suckowitz made the decision to insert so many incorrect facts into her August ruling that went against Avery. Picture of Stephen is pretty recent. Perhaps she did this because she knew she was under such intense and enormous pressure from longtime friends of hers, people like Ken Kratz, Jerry Poggle of the Calumet County Sheriff's Office, and other state politicians who work in Madison. Perhaps she made the August ruling mindful of Wisconsin's elites, people affiliated with Wisconsin's insurance companies, that could be forced to shell out gobs of money in the event that someone else is exposed as being the true killer of Teresa Halbach. Stephen Avery insisted since November 2005 that he is innocent and had nothing to do with Halbach's disappearance after she visited his family's salvage yard business for another routine photo assignment. On the other hand, Avery's nephew, Bobby Dassey, was gazing at her from a distance, watching her every move from behind a window inside his mother Barb's house, also along Avery Road. After insisting her mistake-riddled ruling in August, Judge Suckowitz did something you never see a judge do. She resigned from the Avery case. She informed the Wisconsin judicial system that she was through with the Avery case. Quote, when dealing with stakes as high as the defendant's liberty, third-party perpetrator evidence walks a bit of a tightrope, end quote, Zellner argued in Friday's post-conviction appeal. Quote, without regard for Mr. Avery's liberty, even after he has brought forth strong new evidence connecting a third party to Miss Halbach's murder, the circuit court has denied Mr. Avery the opportunity for an evidentiary hearing. Mr. Avery now appeals the circuit court's denial of his amended third post-conviction motion because the circuit court's opinion is so legally and factually flawed that it does not even consider whether Mr. Avery has alleged sufficient facts to warrant an evidentiary hearing. Instead, the circuit court erroneously interprets the State v. Denny as requiring conclusive proof of a motive to satisfy the materiality requirement of State v. Edmonds, and as requiring the alleged third-party suspect to have necessary skills to manipulate evidence in a manner that would implicate the defendant to satisfy the opportunity prong of Denny. I'm going to stop right there for a second. Any thoughts or quotes rolling by? I haven't seen much. I haven't been able to look at it much, but I just remember reading back in August Judge Angie's order and decision, and talking about. Well, there was several things actually, but one that really stuck out was that she was not concerned at all that a third party, I'm not even going to say, it doesn't even matter whose name it is. I remember saying that a third party was driving this missing person and later turned out to be a victim's car. No concern whatsoever. Didn't have a key, didn't have her electronics. That was her big deal. Which to me is just absolutely crazy. It's absolutely crazy.
To me, I don't know. I feel like, and I'm so jaded because of Daniel's case and all the corruption, but they say, I mean, I feel like she didn't just write these things on her. I mean, you don't think ex parte conversations are going on about the Avery, how she's going to answer Kathleen's
I absolutely do.
Me too.
Yeah.
I mean, break. They act like, oh, she steps down because she's such a mediocre to lousy judge. That was all just, she's just the one signing her name to it. I'm sure there were plenty of strategy sessions about how to just, ignore this or that and go ahead and decide, go ahead and actually try the evidence without an evidentiary hearing and give a conclusion, which is really improper. I don't know. These corrupt people just piss me off.
You and me both.
Sorry.
All of us.
Oh, no, all of us. Absolutely. I completely agree with that. While we're paused here, I'm going to share this link to this article in the live chat. Give me just 1 second here. Yeah, okay. Grab this link. For anybody that wants it for later. Any other commentary? I know you guys are waiting on me, but where's that at? There it is. Okay, I got too many damn windows open. You know what that's like? Okay, you have any?
I do. I mean, I have 12 open right now.
Yeah, I've probably got somewhere along that line, plus Adobe, plus some other crap that runs on the side. It's crazy. Let me see if there's any comments here that we can jump into. Oh, I'll highlight this one for Mr. President.
Yeah. Yeah, no shit.
Yeah, I mean, when I just remember us going through and reading, and I had not pre-read her decision and order, and us going through it and reading that out loud, it's like my jaw was on the floor. She just didn't care that somebody else. Again, it doesn't matter if it's Bobby or Joe Schmo from Antarctica. Somebody else had her car, but it's no big deal because nobody saw this person with her key and her electronics. And you shake your head at that, and I think to myself, how can you possibly say that with a straight face? How can you do it? I guess.
This Court of Appeals decision is going to be so interesting.
Yeah, it is. Yep, and I'm sure it's going to direct it'll definitely direct Kathleen as to what to do next, because she's walked these hallways here. And Angie's not going to, I mean, she's made other really crazy justifications. I'm pretty sure she's the one that came up with the word inexplicable. I think it was her.
Yes, she was. Oh, no. Actually,
that was the Court of Appeals.
That was the Court of Appeals.
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah.
It was the Court of Appeals.
That's where I got my name.
Yep. Inexplicable that these 5 or 6 state employees, at least 1 or 2 of them were from the AG's office, were just giving away biological evidence in a case 4 years after the fact. It's like, Jesus Christ, man. It's inexplicable. We can't explain it. All right. Does anybody want to help read this? I mean, it's not a super long article. I can read it if y'all want, but I'm not that great of a reader.
Yeah, go ahead, Jack. Finish it.
You're a
Okay.
fine reader.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Quote, the circuit court's decision denying Mr. Avery an evidentiary hearing on his new evidence of Bobby Dassey's possession of Miss Halbach's vehicle is based on an irrational premise that Bobby could have been in possession of the car that night to help hide the evidence to protect 2 individuals directly linked by forensic evidence to this murder and convicted of the crime, end quote. According to
on the
Zellner,
salvage yard, right?
yeah, right. I'm going to help hide it here where you live.
Right.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, work that one out reasonably too, please.
Woo.
According to Zellner, here are the 6 major errors committed by Judge Suckwitz when it came to messing up the basic facts of the Halbach murder trial in her August post-conviction ruling. So here we go. Number 1. Judge Suckwitz used Brendan Dassey's confession against Stephen Avery, even though the confession was inadmissible in Avery's trial, and Avery's trial judge, Patrick Willis of Manitowoc, said it was unreliable and was contradicted by the evidence. Number 2. Judge Suckwitz thought forensic evidence connected Brendan Dassey to the crime. It did not. Number 3. Judge Suckwitz believed Halbach's bones were in Avery's burn barrel. They were in Bobby Dassey's burn barrel. Number 4. Judge Suckwitz believed Bobby Dassey pushed the RAV4 onto the Avery property to help, in caps, Mr. Avery hide evidence, even though it actually resulted in all the evidence being discovered. Quote, in circuit court's nonsensical conclusion, because these actions could have been seen as an effort by Bobby to help Mr. Avery, he cannot be considered a valid third-party Denny suspect, end quote, Zellner argued in Friday's filing. Quote, the circuit court failed to explain why, if Bobby was simply lending a helping hand to his homicidal uncle, he would then become the state's star witness against Mr. Avery, end quote. Number 5. Judge Suckwitz said we had to demonstrate with absolute certainty that Bobby made all the porn searches. She wanted to know if we had performed psychological testing on Bobby Dassey, like we could force him to be examined, which is crazy. And I say that in conjunction with somebody saying psychological. Number 6. Judge Suckwitz says we had to determine that Bobby Dassey had the scientific expertise to plant the evidence against Mr. Avery. Wisconsin has no such requirement, and it wouldn't have taken any expertise to plant the evidence. Avery's blood could have been removed with a wet rag from Avery's sink and dripped into the vehicle. The electronic devices were burned in the Dassey burn barrel and put in Avery burn barrel. The bullet could have been from many bullets in Avery's garage. The bullet could have been rubbed in Halbach's blood or touched her skin before she was burned. We point out that Bobby was a skilled hunter and had been stalking, hunting, burning, and dismembering game for many years, while Mr. Avery was locked up for a crime he did not commit, end quote. 1 mistake, 2 mistakes, 3 mistakes, 4, 5, 6. Yikes. Now that Judge Suckowitz's colossal volumes of errors on Avery's appeal have slowed the legal process for Zellner and Stephen Avery even more, someone else in the Wisconsin judicial system will be required to exterminate the foul smell of horse manure and cow dung coming from the halls of the Sheboygan Courthouse, where Judge Suckowitz's chambers and courtroom are located. Holy shit.
That's awesome.
God dang it.
Told you it was scathing. It would have been one thing for Suckwitz to issue an an eloquent and well-researched legal opinion justifying her reasons for preventing Avery from getting a second trial, but that's not what happened in August. And on Friday, Zellner exposed the questionable judge to all the rest of America's lawyers and judges to read for themselves. And now that Judge Suckowitz has mysteriously taken herself off the handling of Avery's case, some other judge, a newbie to the Manitowoc bench, named Anthony Lambrecht, is I'm saying that right, Susan? Lambrecht?
Yes, Lambert.
Is lined up for the task of trying to bring respect and dignity back to Wisconsin judiciary surrounding the world watched events of Stephen Avery case. Meanwhile, the world waits to see what the Wisconsin Court of Appeals will do. Zellner has just reminded that courts of all errors. Let me start that again. Zellner has just reminded that court of all the errors made by Suckowitz in her August ruling, errors that, in essence, allowed Judge Suckowitz to avoid focusing on the real legal issue staring her in the face. The emergence of Thomas Sowinski, the Gannett, Wisconsin media newspaper carrier who came forward to testify that he saw Bobby Dassey working with someone else who was not Stephen Avery or Brendan Dassey, pushing the RAV4 belonging to Teresa Halbach. The middle of the night sighting by the newspaper delivery carrier happened only 6 hours before Halbach's vehicle was found on the back perimeter of Avery's salvage yard property on November 5, 2005. That single event launched Manitowoc County's quest to target Stephen Avery for Halbach's disappearance and death. It helped obliterate Avery's $36 million federal lawsuit against Sheriff Kosorek just a few days before Kosorek was scheduled to give his videotaped lawsuit deposition for framing Avery in the August 1985 Lake Michigan shoreline rape and prominent Manitowoc businesswoman. The crime the police knew was committed by predator Gregory Allen. Quote, the Sowinski evidence is additionally material because it completely calls into question the reliability of the state's key witness, Bobby's testimony, which allowed the state to argue that Mr. Avery had exclusive control of Miss Halbach and her vehicle, which contained all of the forensic evidence, and that this evidence was not tainted by any third party, end quote. Zellner argued in Friday's appeal to the Wisconsin Court of Appeals. During his closing argument, the state emphasized the importance of Bobby's testimony and vouched for his credibility. Clearly, by Bobby possessing the Halbach vehicle, there was a reasonable likelihood it would have affected the judgment of the jury and that Bobby would have emerged as a much more likely suspect in the murder of Miss Halbach than his recently released wrongfully convicted uncle. Contrary to the state's representations to the jury, Bobby was biased and deserved no credit for his fabricated testimony. Zellner emphasized to the Wisconsin Appeals Court in Friday's filing. That's it, and that's Frack there. Excellent author. He's a really good investigator reporter. So, told you it's pretty scathing, Kay. I read through it and I was like, holy crap.
That's crazy.
Yep.
Well, maybe this newbie judge isn't corrupt yet.
Maybe. Maybe he's not gonna.
Usually there's a reason you get. Was he elected to his position?
Yeah, I think they're elected to. Gosh, I don't even want to say. I want. Sheree, do you remember if it's 4 or 6 year terms that they're elected in the circuit court there in Wisconsin? I can't remember.
I don't know. I did look up his history last night, and it was encouraging that he was in law enforcement for 6 years. Then he became an attorney, and he did time as he worked as a DA, assistant DA, and as a public defender. And somebody said that he was, another person in the chat said he was connected with the Innocence Project in some capacity too.
Well, that's even better.
Yeah, that's encouraging, you know.
It is. it is encouraging. So, yeah, that's very interesting. But I thought people might be that hadn't seen that article. Somebody sent it to me through email. I really appreciate them doing that. I thought it was a really interesting article. Okay, let's get to the questions and let's get out of here and get something because I'm getting pretty hungry myself. So I know Susan's not having any venison tonight because Eddie didn't get a deer, but that's okay.
I'm actually having venison stew from last year's
from last year.
deer. Yeah.
Well, so there's no more hunt this year for deer where you guys at, or is there another hunt later?
It ends tomorrow. It's over.
Oh, so he still has a chance. He could still get lucky tomorrow if he goes.
I think it might be today. I'm not sure.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. All right. Let's get to. You removed him. Oh no, you didn't. Never mind. Hold on. I'm looking at the wrong thing. We got some questions here that Cherie has highlighted. Do you want to go through those quickly, Cherie?
The one about Farak, has Farak been invited to participate in the Foul Play Q&A podcast? Not sure he'd be interested, willing, but it would be cool, Mr. President.
I have never asked him personally. I don't know if Doc or anyone else has sent him a request. I typically have shied away from that.
It seems like somebody, maybe it was Paul or Mark, that had him during one of the Mammothons. But
yeah, it seemed like he was on for an interview with one of them or somebody else. I do remember that, Cherie. I don't remember which one it was. Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's not a bad idea. You know, you think about, I just think of us as a small community within the Tuesday community, but it would be interesting. You know, most of these people, they just won't do it because if they do it for one, they feel like they have to do it for everyone. And I get that. I have asked Buting a couple times and, you know, if we were a group of lawyers or something like that, he might agree to it, but we're not. We're just, you know, part of a larger community at large. That's not, I mean, Doc's professional. I mean, he's got a professional background. But, you know, I understand why these folks typically will not do it. And mainly for that reason, I've just shied away and have not asked or asked very few people to come on and have a Q&A with us. But it's not a bad idea, Mr. President.
I can't remember who asked this, but somebody said, what does Griesbach sound like? Because Susan has to do his voice just as good as she does Jack's.
We've got a couple. I've got a couple of interviews with him. I think one's. I think what I've got's posted in the. I think it's in the miscellaneous playlist in our YouTube library.
Oh, he talks in Colburn's suit too. Remember?
Yes, he did.
One of the audio hearings.
Yeah, we've got the audio hearings. I mean, his voice. He sounds like a normal Wisconsin person. He doesn't have the large body. I don't know what the proper musical term, how to describe Kratz's voice. But a really high
soprano.
Thank you. The large body soprano voice that Kratz has.
He's certainly not an alto though. Griesbach, yeah. There's an interview I remember, kind of a sickening interview he did on a panel. What was that?
Yeah, I think that
Talking
was
about
like
the case.
just before. If it's the one I'm thinking of, it was just before Making a Murderer 1 came out.
Oh yeah, I think I remember that too.
Look, this is Mr. President. I'm just joining, but why did whoever's answering think it should be up to him personally as to whether SA should be released? I think Griesbach said that at one point, that he was trying to decide for himself, I assume.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the last one, what has Stephen's past got to do with the present case? Respectfully, Faye, F-A-E.
Yeah, you know, past history in a lot of cases is relevant, when you're looking at serial type killers and that kind of thing. But in this, especially in CAM, and I'm not going to go deep into that, but the goal was to, basically say how big of an asshole that Stephen is at times and has been in various events and so forth, to conclude that made him a murderer of Teresa Halbach. And I just don't see there's just not the comparison. The incident with the cat was with a group of people. He did participate, and he deserved to be punished for that. All of them did. I don't agree with any of that at all. None of us do. But it was a one-time incident, and typically in those kinds of cases where you have animals being hurt or maimed and killed with a serial killer or people that are really psychologically disturbed that do that kind of thing, and then they graduate to moving into hurting people and even up to killing them. It's different, but they try to make this association. Kratz tried to get a lot of this stuff entered into trial in the 2005 trial, and of course Willis rightfully would not allow it. And but that's the connection, is to convince people. Just look at the crap he did back in 20 or 40. Well, some of us 40, right at 40 years old. You're going back to 82 to the cat incident. That was 82. There were 4 of them involved. It was 2 main ones. It was him and Jerry Yonda, but that's the reason they did it. That's the reason a lot of people still do it. That's my opinion. If anybody else has got something they want to add to that, they can. Okay. I thought there was one more here. Oh, it's from Clive. We missed one here. It's got up here. I bet Griesbach knew about the phone call from Brown County, and if he did know about it, he certainly discussed it with his colleagues. Yeah, it's possible. I can't really answer that.
I wouldn't be surprised, but I don't know either.
Right. And Ronald Cass was the Minnesota case ever on CCAP? And again, we can't know that because we don't have any reports. Nothing was submitted as evidence, at least nothing that we got our hands on. Which to me, I don't know. I don't know if it should have been printed out and presented to the DOJ or not at the time. But again, that goes back to the question of if they're pulling up Gregory Allen's record at that point in time. This was on the 22nd. I'd have to look at the date, but I'm almost positive that it was the 12th or 13th of September 2005 when that arrest warrant was filed. I guess there could have been a delay in getting it added to his record, but
was it CODIS or what? They actually had enough evidence to catch him without DNA at the.
No, it was CODIS.
Case? Oh,
it was CODIS. Oh, yeah, it was CODIS. It was DNA. I mean, Allen's DNA was. They discovered it was a match in '99, but for whatever reason, that Hennepin County decided not to move forward with it, and they didn't inform the woman that got assaulted. They didn't tell her. They just put it in the file and put the file away. Because Allen was in prison for 60 years in Wisconsin. And then in 2005, somebody called the Hennepin County prosecutor's office to find out if there's been any update or status to that case, and they dug the case out. They called the police department, got a detective. They opened the file up and saw that there was a match and nothing had been done, and things quickly moved. And that was in I think May of 2005. A judge signed a warrant to get Allen's DNA. That happened in June of 2005. Again, this is the middle of the depositions. They got the sample, had it tested. It was a match. The arrest warrant was written a few months later in September. So I don't know. I don't know the system. I don't it's unfair to throw out a bunch of accusations that I can't prove. I just find it questionable. But there could have been a delay in getting that entered into CCAP if this actually works that way. So, any other questions here? I'm trying to look. Got a message on. Oh, that's okay, Allie. Yeah, we're about done. No biggie. We'll get you next time. But I know you guys pulled a late nighter. I do want to give a shout out to the defense diaries. We did it yesterday. Some really great lawyers that have take their time and really try to look at these cases from an unbiased eye, balanced with what their experience as lawyers that they've had over the years and the things that they get put in front of them. Not just the Avery case, but they're in the Delphi case and other cases too that they talk about, which I think is just fantastic. I really like them. I think they have a lot of respect within the community at large. They do such a great job. And thank you, Kat, for linking the defense diaries. It's really cool. I demand more tomorrow. Well, I think tomorrow, typically, Amy, she's covering the Ashley Garth case. She typically is on Monday evenings. I try to avoid when I can if somebody's got another live going on, so we don't detract.
She does have one planned for tomorrow night, Amy.
I figured she did. So, I don't know. Maybe we'll do something during the week. I don't know. We'll see, Anthony. I'm not going to promise anything, but we'll see. We still got several more depositions to cover because we got at least. Let me look here. September. I think I still got this open. Yeah, here we go. September, we have Vernon Clement and then David Dvorak. So we still got those two to do for September. And then October, where's that at? I'll just highlight this here. For October, there's 9. And those include James Link, Ramona Marcel. That's a crazy one there. Sandra Morris, Andrew Colburn, Fred Nicholson. Nicholson's another retired detective from Manitowoc County. Judy Dvorak, Ken Peterson, Larry Conrad, another retired detective. We all know who Ken Peterson is, sheriff. And then Cachet is the last one on the 26th. So a lot of heavy hitters. We're building up to getting to Bogle and Kosarik there in November. So we still got several to go. So I don't know. We'll see. Maybe we'll do something midweek. Try to get some of these knocked out. Not a bad idea. I'll say maybe, Anthony. I won't say for sure. So anyway, let's get this wrapped up because I'm hungry. So let's go with final thoughts. Starting with Susan. Are you here? Can you talk? You got a mouthful.
I'm here. I haven't eaten yet. I'm ready though. Yeah,
Any final?
That was a good one to read, Jack. Yeah, in his book, Indefensible, is that the one he wrote about?
Yeah.
The 85 case.
I think so.
It's amazing how he wrote that, and then, like the Innocence Project did, just immediately did a 180.
It really is interesting.
On the 05 case. So.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Thanks for putting this out there.
Well, thanks for reading. Did a great job as always.
Hey, you bet.
All righty. Then next up
Everybody,
we have.
I'll just tell everybody to stay warm wherever you may be.
It's
Yeah.
cold. It's cold. It's cold in here right now.
If you are warm somewhere, I'm jealous.
Big fire roaring.
Good night,
All righty.
everybody.
Yeah. Thanks, Susan. Next up, we have Cherie.
Thank you very much for doing these depositions. I've been wanting to have us go through them for a long time, and so I'm glad that we're doing it and learn so much every time. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for your help as well. Always welcome. Great reader as well. And then rounding us out will be Kay.
Yeah, hey, thanks for reading that article. That was really interesting. I just really hope that this new judge will be a breath of fresh air. I mean, an Oklahoma County judge, she wasn't real new, but she's the one who listened to the evidentiary hearing in the Glenn Simmons case, the guy that had been in prison for 46 or 7 years?
Yeah.
And, he was out within a matter of months after that. And man, I wish Stephen could catch a break like that with an honest judge, because all of these judges can just rubber stamp a no and just keep it going. And that's what's really sick about this fight, being involved in this, that it's always just so much negative energy all the time, because the people in power just, they're either corrupt and they do whatever it takes to protect the conviction, or, they could do the right thing. So I'm hopeful.
I am too. And you said it really well. And thank you for reading, Kay. Really appreciate that. Always great. You're a great reader.
You're
welcome. But that goes hand in hand with exactly what you're saying and how far, of course, this is just my opinion, Judge Angie Witt went, and we just read it out in that article that Frack wrote. And there's more. I mean, that was certainly just part of some of the decisions that she's made going back over the last several years that were like, wait, what? What?
Yeah.
You
just say what you want. Make
right.
it up.
Just to justify just ignoring someone's right to have a new hearing or an evidentiary hearing or a new trial, whatever the case may be, to answer these questions. Get it out. Let's get it out there. Let's get it done. It really is discouraging as a part of our criminal justice system. So anyway, I'm going to get us on out of here. I'd like to thank everybody that came and is interested in these depositions. I really have been since we got them. I'd really like to have the video portion, but I doubt that's ever going to happen unless somebody drops a. Hey, if anybody's won the lottery or whatever and looking to adopt, let me know. I'm up. Kidding. Anyway, if you do the regular YouTube things for us, as Alice says, like, share, and sub. But share the work. If it's something that you're interested in, maybe get others interested, and you just never know what you'll find out. And with that said, I'm going to say what I always say. It's been a Foul Play production.